The day that this video goes live, it will be Black Friday. Black Friday is a day where people like to spend money, potentially overspend on things, and since I'm a makeup channel, I like to talk about overspending on makeup. That's the vibe of my channel in general. And if you are new here, I'm posting a video every day this weekend. I started yesterday on Thanksgiving because that's when sales start, and I will end on Cyber Monday because that's when a lot of sales end. I know a lot of sales have been happening all throughout this month, but what I'm doing in these videos over this weekend is only using makeup that I already own. Nothing new, not buying anything new, not reviewing anything new. I'm just touching down on my makeup collection in a various amount of ways, and today I want to do a full face of the least loved makeup in my collection. What I mean when I say least loved is the makeup that I've used the least this year. If I'm not reaching for it very often, it means it's the least loved. I'm going to be doing a declutter in December as I always do to really get a good grasp on my makeup collection. I'm not a makeup minimalist, but doing makeup for work has really helped me figure out that I need to narrow down my makeup collection, the stuff that I keep all the time, the stuff that I'm not testing anymore, the stuff that is just permanent there. It needs to be smaller and it has to be the best of the best. There are still really great things that I will review but not keep, but that has to be the best of the best. And I need to try some of this stuff just to make sure that I still feel that it is the best of the best. And if it's not, it'll probably get decluttered. It's not really meant to be a video for the last hurrah of this makeup, but it might be. We'll start with a lip prep step. And if you've been watching my videos recently, you know that I recently fell in love with the City Beauty City Lips lip plumper. But before that, I was using this. This was gifted to me by a friend. It's the Dr. Dennis Gross Plump and Repair Lip Treatment. And I was using this up until I got that City Lips lip plumper. And I have to imagine I'm almost done with this. For most of the year I was using this. Whenever I got the City Lips one, I just started using it more. Compared to the City Lips, this formula is a lot thinner. It's not as thick as the City Lips one, which could be a pro or a con depending on what your preferences are. But the only thing about this that's a lot different is that it actually does burn on the lips. I can feel it doing the sensation of it. Whereas the one from City Beauty, it does not burn my lips really much at all. This one does burn my lips. I think also that the City Lips, the way it plumps my lips, looks better at the end rather than this one does. This one irritates my lips, makes them look a little more red than they are, which is fine. That's a lot of lip plumpers do that. But this one, it has been outranked. And I was really trying to finish it there for a while, but I just don't want to come back to this after I have the City Lips ones. It was a good product for its time, but even whenever I first started using this, I was like, this is okay, but I don't recommend it for you to buy. It's not a thing that is worth lusting over. It's so expensive for what it is. The City Beauty one's also expensive for what it is, but it's not as expensive as this one, or maybe it's about the same price. Do I really want to pay that much for a lip plumper? Also, this one's burning a little bit extra. My lip is currently split, so that's fun. When it comes to face primers, I only have 3 right now. I was really trying to use up the one from Victoria Beckham in the shade Golden for most of this year. When I wasn't using that one, I was using the one from Bobbi Brown, the Vitamin Enriched Face Base. And this came into my life vis-a-vis PR this year from Octoly, which is called Skeepers now, I think. And that's how I got this product. And I tested it a little bit behind the scenes and I like it quite a bit. I think it's really good. It's kind of this old standard in the makeup community. This is the MAC Strobe Cream in the shade Pink Light, by the way. And I like the little glow that it gives. It's a much thinner formula. It really makes my skin look nice and glowy and a little bit rosy. And if I am getting a little bit of a tint from my primer, that is going to be the version of the tint that I would like is a little bit rosy or just kind of a straight, very neutral glow. But because my skin is a little bit pink, it really works on my skin. I feel like it looks really at home. A reason I don't use it as much as I use the other two, I do feel as though that this enhances texture whenever stuff goes on top of it. And I'm not really sure how it manages to do that. The Victoria Beckham primer is a little bit, it plumps my skin a little bit. It blurs my skin a little bit. The one from Merit also blurs my skin and it's a little bit more matte. This gives me the glow that I'm looking for out of a primer because I feel like my skin looks really good. But when I just put makeup on it, I'm not sure it sits as well as I would like it to. So today's a secondary test of that. I was wearing my favorite foundation over that primer a couple videos ago and I was looking at my skin, it did not look good. And the Surratt Dewdrop foundation is my favorite. It's ride or die. And the only thing that was really different in that application was the primer. So this primer is a little bit on notice. But the unfortunate part about today's testing is we're going to be using a foundation that I don't know as well. I know I've worn it enough times, but it's anyway, let's move along. I am going to prime my nose with the Sisley Blur Expert. This is not something that is really included in the theme of today's video. I don't have a non-used version of a nose primer because this became my nose primer this year. I do have like a hard pan there. I'm fairly certain that this side is not hard pan and the left side is. We'll see. I still have a little bit of embossing on it, but it's starting to look a little more used than it has, which is great. When it comes to foundations, I really try to keep my permanent collection to like a maximum of 5 foundations. And that's really the only product I kind of try to keep a cap on. And the reason I like to allow myself to have 5 is I think that there's a time and a space for different finishes of foundations, different levels of coverage. This isn't because I don't enjoy this product. It's just, it's not a product that I have a lot of use for. In fact, if it came in a mini, I think I would be really satisfied with that. So this is the Terracotta Latente from Guerlain. I have the shade 0C. This is a very full coverage foundation. I don't think it's the most full coverage foundation, but based on what I am willing to wear when it comes to coverage, this is as full as I will go. I don't really like wearing full coverage foundation all that often. I don't like the way it reads in real life. I like my foundations to look very natural on my skin. I like more of a blur than I care for coverage, but this is a nice full coverage foundation that I feel like sits on the skin really well. If I'm going out at night, it looks really good, and also on camera, it looks really good. If I'm doing a video where I'm just like kind of doing more commentary, this might be a foundation I reach for. Honestly, even if I'm doing that, I will still reach for one of my more favorite foundations. Most people don't have a need for a foundation for like just events or just like to wearing out. I'm gonna try to apply a pretty thin layer of this because I'm not really looking for a ton of coverage. Oh, I forgot this. I haven't used this in a while. This has a smell to it. Guerlain products have like this because it's the terracotta scent. So if you don't like scented products, this won't be for you. The scent dissipates relatively quickly. It's not something that stays with me all day. I have certainly tried foundations where the fragrance stayed with me all day. The Christian Louboutin one, oh my god, that one smelled all day. But yeah, I've worn this out many nights, you know, all night, and it actually holds up very well, and it kind of doesn't really move at all when I'm like out dancing. Of course I wear it with powder and a setting spray. When I go out, I typically use like the Urban Decay All Nighter instead of my usual Fix Plus as a finishing spray. But you can see just like it's a lot more coverage than I typically wear, and I'm not doing even like a full application of it, and it's still like more coverage than most of my foundations. But I think it makes my skin look really good. This was a hand-me-down product. I think the thing is, for this foundation, the price point it's at, it's like just, it's really expensive, and I don't think a lot of people are like really willing to like, I don't know if I would want to spend that much money on this kind of foundation. Like, I think it's a good version of its own, this kind of thing, this full coverage thing. Like, I think my skin looks really healthy. I think even for fuller coverage, my skin still looks like skin, but I still actually really like the way this applied, and I think it looks really good on top of the primer from MAC. So maybe the primer from MAC is just not something that's going to play well with the Surratt Dewdrop foundation. It's a good match though. It's actually a very good match. I like flexed because my neck and stuff is like in the shadow. So I was just trying to like push it forward. Looks like it matches. I know you came to this channel just to learn how to make sure your foundation matches, and that's how you do it. And no one tells you that. I don't keep very many concealers. Concealer is not a product that I like. It's not the same as foundation for me. I don't feel like I need a lot of finishes. I really only exclusively use concealer on my under eyes. I don't really spot conceal. I might spot conceal. There's a little bit of redness that I have on the high points of my cheeks that gets flared up at different times of the year. And so I might put a little bit there today, but most of the time I'm just putting it under my eyes. And I have 2 concealers, and the only difference really is like coverage is what I'm concerned about for concealers, because I like to wear skin tints in my free time, and skin tints are lighter coverage, and I don't like to use really high coverage concealers with my skin tint. I like it all to kind of be a little more seamless. Not that you can't do high coverage concealers with skin tints and make it look very seamless. I'm just gonna say I'm not gonna put that kind of work in. This is the Dewdrop concealer, and I realized that I basically stopped using this concealer very regularly about halfway through this year. I bought like 3 concealers in May. I got one in PR, and I got 2 other concealers. I bought them in order to do a video that never came to light. And I don't even know if I'm gonna still do the video. I thought about putting it together for December, but it's like also not a video that I think anyone will care about. I'll let you know about my thoughts about them. So whenever those came into my life, I started just like testing those more vigorously. And then I came back to this for a little bit, and then I bought another concealer that kind of just like blew my mind, and I've been using that really for the time since. But that concealer is still in my testing drawer. I haven't moved it into my permanent collection. I really haven't used this much this year. Like the last year and most of this year, this was my primary care concealer, you know, was the concealer I always reached for. And it's still a really great concealer. It literally is just the one concealer that I like bought to review. Really just like blew this out of the water. But this is a nice, really thin, high coverage concealer formula, and it really looks like skin. Like, I think it's pretty undetectable. The thing about the other concealer I've been loving recently, it's like, I think a little more undetectable on the skin, but still provides coverage. But like, I really like this concealer. I would say the concealer's biggest flaw is that it only comes in 10 shades, and it's not a very good 10 shades if you're only going to do a 10 shade range. I really like the way this looks under my eyes. The only thing is, and this could, sometimes this is an application thing. Sometimes I go a little heavy on concealer, which I shouldn't do, because the fold under my eye, whenever it gets product in it, I really hate the way that looks. And basically, the reason I like held off on using this for a lot of the year is because when I had been editing the thumbnails, and I take the screenshot to edit my thumbnails, because I shoot in 4K, I think whenever I'm talking on camera, it's like not as noticeable unless you like really look in to see if if the folds under my eyes have product cut on it. But whenever I'm like editing that picture, it bothers me so much. And this concealer and most of the concealers that I was testing for that concealer video, they all were getting caught in my under eyes. And then I tried this new one and it like wasn't doing that. It does it a little bit, but I think the formula is even thinner than the one from Surratt, which was like the thinnest, most high coverage formula I'd used up until this point. I just don't see that anymore when I'm editing my thumbnails. So yeah, it just kind of like something better came, and I just kind of fully moved on from that. Here's something I'll say about that. That's something that I don't think a regular consumer, meaning most of the people who watch my video who aren't content creators, who aren't getting makeup to review in PR and or are not buying makeup to review to make money on it, is like, if you're happy with your concealer, if everything about it works and you know no better, then buying a new one is probably not the right move. Get your money's worth out of the one that you spent your hard-earned money on it. Now that I've moved on from this, there's no loss for me because this was sent to me in PR. The one I moved on to is one I actually purchased. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, you should really just love what you have, and then whenever you're about to be done with your concealer, maybe that's the time you buy a new concealer. And maybe you'll want to try a couple of them until you figure out which one is your actual favorite, and then you use that one up. It all depends on how you want to navigate through the space. Navigate through the beauty space. My most cliche phrase, however you want to navigate the space. I just think, keep in mind that the hunt for better is going to cost you a lot of money. And it's probably not worth it if you're very happy with what you already have. Even though I might love something different, if you bought this on my recommendation or you bought this and it really works for you, I'm not telling you to buy the new thing. Use this one. It's still a really good concealer. It's just my focus shifted, and in the nature of what I'm doing here, that's why that happened. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have bought any concealers this year if I didn't get that one concealer in PR and then I wasn't interested in a couple other ones for review. I probably just would have kept using this and been very happy all year. Ignorance is bliss a little bit when it comes to that. For contour, this should come as no surprise because I only have 2 contours, and this is the Contour Stylist from Victoria Beckham in the shade Travertine. I did a cream contour video like a year and a half ago. Is that how long? Or maybe just about a year ago, or a little over a year ago. Anyway, I did a cream contour video where I tried, I think it was 10 cream contours, and I had like an arbitrary system that I went through. And this one is my favorite in theory. The thing that I don't like about it as much as I don't love the color of it, because this is a much warmer contour than the contour I use on a regular basis, which is Ritual Diffuse Intuition. And I think this is really great. I had a contour stylist like this from Burberry years ago. Fairly certain that the concept of this for Victoria was to remake that product. If you look up Burberry contour stick, an interview from Victoria Beckham talking about her favorite beauty, I don't know what magazine it is in, pops up and she's talking about the Burberry contour stilo. This is like way before her beauty brand even existed. And so it clearly was a product that she just really liked and wanted to recreate. What I love about this is that it is a stick. It's really easy. Just apply that. Also incredibly blendable, and it looks really natural on the skin. It's just warm. And contour, as a fair skinned person who like has some cooler leaning undertones, that warmth just really reads very warm on me as compared to some other people. Something that I'm kind of realizing right now more than ever is just that if there is warmth in a product, my skin's gonna enhance how warm that looks, because my undertones are on the kind of opposite. So I think things just look warmer on me because unless they're actually cool toned, my skin's gonna make them read much warmer. I still think this is a good contour shade for most people. It's just not fair enough for me. And so I do like using this as a contour when I'm doing much more bronzy looks. But for the regular contouring, it's just not the right shade for that. But I still like having it. And I loved when I had my Burberry contour, I used it all the time. It was like a daily use product for me. But that was before I like really was doing this, and I went through like 2 or 3 of them whenever I used to use that product, and it was just as expensive and just as small. Something that I have noticed, and I think this is why I have been being more vocal about how things do pull warm on me, is because sometimes I'll swatch things that people have and they're like, that looks really warm on you, and it's like, yes, and it's going to. Anything that has a little bit of warmth in it, my skin's going to take that warmth and run, but your skin might not, because your skin might be like more neutral. You might have more pigment to your skin. Like if you're not fair, like I am, I think you're just not gonna have as many issues with that as I am. So like bronzers that pull orange, it's just a thing. It's just the nature of my skin tone. When it came to highlighter, there was a lot of highlighters I didn't use. And I think I picked this one because I don't think it was the one I actually used the least. But when I thought of all the ones I did use the least, it was the one I was most inclined to want to use. I think my highlighter collection is like going to be the thing that's most overhauled in my end of the year declutter. Not because I've really been wearing less highlighter. Relatively recently, a lot of good highlighters have come into my life. Some of my highlighters are cream highlighters, and I think some of them are past their prime. Not that they don't really apply on my skin very well, but I just took a sniff of some of them and I'm like, oh, that's not right. Shouldn't smell like that. I think that this will still survive because I can use it in a myriad of ways. I'm not really sure when I fell out of the practice of using it, but it's the Auric Glow Lust. If you were here when I bought this was just my all. Like it was my everything. I used it so much. And in fact, I feel like the first quarter of a year I had it, I got through like a third of the bottle. And then I just kind of stopped using it. And I'm not really sure why I fell out of the practice of using it. There's still a lot of things that I love about this product. Like, I like that it has a little bit of coverage. I like the glossiness that it provides. It just feels like a habit that I fell out of more so than a product that I fell out of love with. The biggest problem, I think, with this product in particular is that it doesn't really live with my other highlighters, and it lives with my primers. And I think I'm at this point where I'm just much less inclined to use like a liquid illuminator as a highlighter. I like to be much more purposeful where my glow is. But whenever I first got the Auric Glow Lust, I was a lot less purposeful about where I put my glow. But and it's just like a change of preference. I know a lot of people with like dry skin really like to use this product as a priming step so they can have that glow before they put anything on. That's what I love about this. And I think Samantha has struggled with her skin. Samantha Ravendall, who owns Auric, she struggled with her skin. So I feel like she really did a good job making a product that like will go over color and texture and not enhance it too much, because I feel like I have some redness on the high points of my cheek, and I feel like Auric Glow Lust covers it a little bit, and you can still see that there's like a little bit of texture there, but the redness is like mostly kind of gone even after I put that on. And whenever I would put it on as a primer, it would kind of neutralize my whole face as well. It's still a really pretty glow. I love the way it looks on my skin. I have used it within the last couple of weeks relatively regularly, and I was like, I do like this product is great. And I still feel that way about it. It's just like, I need to figure out a way to entice me to use it more, which I have come up with a plan for a little bit of a project next year. I'll tell you more about it in my declutter because that's where it's really going to take its shape. For powder, the one I definitely use the least that I own is the Givenchy Prism Libre powder. This is the old formula. I've had this all year. Whenever this product got discontinued and people were very up in arms about it, I did not feel the same passion about it being discontinued as many people did. I'm also going to do a technique I haven't done in a while, but I feel like all my friends are using powder puffs to apply powder again. And I saw Kelly Gooch do it, and she said she works the powder into the puff. And so I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to press it into my skin. I just never really got the wow factor from this powder. It never was bad, but it also never felt like a revolutionary powder to me. I don't love loose powder. That is negative number one. The whole rigmarole of getting loose powder out is just so annoying to me. I would much rather use a pressed powder. And I know there are benefits between using pressed powder versus using loose powder and the binding agents and a pressed powder. I get it. I understand that that is certainly a thing. But for me, I don't know. It's just it doesn't do it, but it also doesn't not do it. And I also think there's no harm in me keeping a loose powder. And I have another loose powder, one from Suku, that I held on to after the review. And guess what? I still haven't used it, I think, since I did my Suku review. Okay, I see why Kelly likes this application method. I used to do this kind of thing when I would bake my face, but I don't really do that unless I'm going out these days. But I think it made my skin look really matte. And kind of, it did its work in the world. But if you happen to be looking for a dupe, I've heard that follow me here, the Hello Kitty limited edition loose powder that Wet n Wild released is a really good dupe of this formula. So do with that information what you will. I can't speak to that personally. I'm not interested in doing a comparison. That's just the word on the street. I don't know if the Hello Kitty powder comes in shades. The Givenchy powder had quite the range. I don't know that it went super deep, but there was 8 of them and they did different things. So I'm sure the Hello Kitty one probably only comes in wet jade. So hopefully if you were looking for it and you were, I don't know. I don't even know what it looks like. I'll pop a picture of it here. That's the one. Okay, for bronzer, I actually, after my declutter in July, I did a really good job getting through all of my bronzers and using them all. I will say that the one I use the least is probably still the Surratt Artistique bronzer, but I still really like it. It's still something that I think about. I pull it out. That's kind of the main goal of where I want my collection to be every time I declutter is whenever I think about my makeup, I can think about most of it and be I know how that applies. I know how I feel about that thing. I know that I like it. And, I just don't have the mental capacity to maintain knowledge of just hundreds and hundreds of products. I just want to know what I have. At the end of last year when I did my declutter, I also was trying to be realistic about my bronzers, and I actually decluttered some bronzers I really loved, but I don't miss them. I still have felt very fulfilled by the bronzers I kept and I continue to use to this day. Nothing really revolutionary there, not something that I have a lot of strong feelings on. Otherwise, I think it's a beautiful bronzer. I like the way it applies, blah, blah, blah. Well, I know my bronzer collection pretty well. It's just not the one I use the most, and that's really where it lands. Let's move on to blush. There was a lot of blushes I could choose from. I have been working on panning Inner Glow from Kira Weiss, and I actually just did a favorites of all time in my collection, and that's my current favorite blush that I own. And I also owned it last year when I talked about my favorite makeup products, but just using it a lot this year made me really enjoy it. It's my go-to blush. Blushes also really, I pick them based on the look that I'm doing, so it just depends. So I have some warm blushes, and I like them. I just don't use them that much. This really isn't a warm blush. It is just a strange blush. This is from Chanel. They don't make this shade anymore. It's in the shade 608 Ombre. In case you want to try to look for it on the secondhand market, I very bravely, boldly, and brazenly said in one video that it's really easy to find on the secondhand market. And then a bunch of you were like, that is not truthful. This is a really beautiful beigey brown blush. And I really like this sort of thing. And it does pink up a little bit on the cheeks for me. And really what it is I have another Chanel blush that I just like more. And so if I'm choosing to wear a Chanel blush, I'm looking for that Chanel compact before I would wear this one. And again, it's not even that I don't like this one. It actually is a blush that really would work with most of the looks that I do. I just don't choose it. And I'm not really sure why, because every time I use it, not only do I enjoy the way it looks, but I get a lot of compliments from you. And the beigey blush bit, you know, I know that like it's beige is boring, blah, blah, blah. I just feel like it adds some dimension and a little bit of something to the cheek, but without being like overbearing. It's a very good, like, no blush, but I still want the dimensionality of having a blush on my cheek kind of product. And I think that's really where its worth is. This was a gift from my friend Ananda. She passed it on to me. I'm not that precious about like gifts normally. Like if I don't like something, I will really just move on from it. I love it. I love it every time I use it. I just need to use it more. I would get my brain to think about it more. Because, okay, here's the thing. When I think of blushes, I'm going to pick one of these 3 blushes nearly every time. The Pillow Talk Blush Wand from Charlotte Tilbury. Inner Glow from Kierra Weiss, because that's the one I'm currently panning. And then the third one I might choose is Mimi, but most of the time I'm choosing one of those first 2. It is really interesting, and I have so many beautiful blushes with different finishes. I also, you know, I love Barb Papa. I didn't use that as much this year. I don't know what that's about. Let's move on to eyeshadow. This was like something I figured out mostly at the end of last year into this year, is that I don't really care about eyeshadow palettes. I don't really, my brain, so whatever. Like I don't really care about eyeshadow palettes. And so definitely my eyeshadow palettes this year are probably the thing that I mostly ignored most, even more than my blushes that I can't even think of off the top of my head. I love to put a cream eyeshadow, like beige down, and then I love to just throw a beautiful shimmer on top of it. And specifically the eyeshadows that are in their own compacts that are in my top drawer, they get a lot of play. So I knew that I was going to pick an eyeshadow palette for the purposes of this video. There were 2 that were very clearly the least loved in my collection. And this is the one I think that I don't even, if I did a video with it, it was this year, or if I used it at all this year, it was to force myself to use it. And here we are yet again. This is the Industrial 1 palette from Izumaya. I have like complex feelings about this palette for some reason. Like I really just like, I loved it so much. At one point, like I love this palette so much. I really have gotten into like a couple of the shades, like really have enjoyed playing with this palette at one point. Izumaya is, we're all flawed humans, but like she's just kind of annoying. And so that's like thing 1. And then she had like a slight scandal with volunteerism after I bought the palette. She also then released like this Yeehaw country thing that I wasn't interested in. And then her third full launch was part 2 of the Industrial collection. The way she talked about her brand before we saw what was going to become of it was much more interesting than it actually was. And I really bought into the fantasy for the first release, and then I realized I felt like I got duped by the way I felt about it. So I think that that's another thing about this palette, is like it makes me feel like, oh, this brand could have been something and then it just turned into nothing, and then now we're releasing penis lipsticks. Do you know those kids? And I do mean kids, like kids when you're in high school. There are people who I feel who are like naturally edgy and like they have like interesting thoughts to share with the world. And like the way that they present themselves isn't fake. Like they're not posers. Everything Izumaya has done has left me to feel like she is a poser. She's a try-hard. And I really bought into that at the first release. And then in releases following, I've like, oh, you're just a poser. That's how she feels. Like she's someone who puts on the illusion of edge, puts out products with the illusion of edge, but like a lipstick's a lipstick. I don't care if it's shaped like a penis. And it wasn't like a revolutionary act as she was presenting it to us. And I also think if you ran out of ideas after your second collection and had to go back to your first collection and put a palette together that was like mostly rejects from the first palette, I think we're a little bit lost in the sauce. And what recently has just put out expansions of some of her good products. But like, again, that first interview, like the interviews leading up to the release of the first collection, she was talking about how like nothing in her line would be permanent. And like she was going to do like seasonal releases that would be like, I don't know. It just has let me down. But when I opened this palette, which I don't often open this palette, I get good feelings. I would say that this kind of color story is a little less what I'm wearing now, but there are still colors in here that are things that I would wear now. So what I want to do is try to put a look together with the eyeshadows that I would wear more commonly today. So like I used to be really into the greens. The rust colors were never really my thing, but they played really well with the greens. So there are some like more relaxed colors in here, and so I want to use those today. So I am basically going to do like a smudgy liner with the matte black, but I'm going to keep that as close to the lash line as I can. This is the second makeup look I'm doing today. Basically, I'm trying to film as much as I can this weekend, which I'm filming this on the weekend before Thanksgiving in order to be able to edit. And so I'm not worried about filming during the weekend of Thanksgiving so that I can just edit. And I also have a couple videos that not need to be, but in my fantasy will be up before Thanksgiving because I filmed the last Critical Sass, which you should have already seen at this point, earlier today. And then I could have filmed the after Sass today, but I wanted to take a break from the big Sass cinematic universe. I'm much more into like smudgy, sooty kind of looks. And I think I'm actually just like more skilled even now than I was when I started using this palette. Like I keep the smudginess like a little bit closer to the lash line. And I did a smoky eye for Critical Sass and it turned out really well. So I'm kind of like trying to do the same eye shape. I will say this black when I'm doing this isn't super pigmented. I don't know that it was ever super pigmented in my history of using it, but it is like a weird like putty texture. So perhaps this brush isn't really like super picking it up, but that's okay. It doesn't really need to. But I feel like you can see a little bit of the smudge. It looks a little bit lived in. Love that. So a lot of the times I build my structure in like the traditional way I learned how to do my eyeshadow, where I do a transition shade and then I do crease shade and then I do an outer corner shade or maybe a couple of outer corner shades. And then I do like a shimmer on my lid. That's like not what I'm intending on doing today. So the shade that I really kind of want on most of my lid is that shade. But I do feel as though I need something is a little bit of an in-between. And my favorite shade in here is actually this one right here. It's like this multi-colored dark black glitter shade. And I'm just gonna put that and focus it mostly on the center of that smudge that I just did. Okay, I mean, honestly, I could stop there and that would be like a completely sufficient look. I don't want to speak for everyone. I think that I can have the propensity to overwork an eye look if I'm trying too hard. So like sometimes taking a step back and like looking at something like what I just did and being like, that could be the eye look is a nice reminder. So I'm just saying that to you. If you like the way that this smudgy liner, which is a little bit of that glitter on it, looks, that's an eye look. It doesn't have to be more than that. It's really pretty. I'm going to do a little more than that, but probably not much. I very rarely play with my natural crease, which is like kind of what I'm doing with this right now. And it's like very nice. But the last shade I want to use is this like beigey sparkle. I think I'm just going to use my finger for this one. I'm just going to kind of like apply it all over the lid. Okay, actually this lays. I actually quite, yeah, that's it. That's makeup. Heading into my declutter before I did this video, I thought this is a really easy palette for me to part ways with. But doing this eyeshadow look, this like yucky, kind of like very creasy, mucky look is kind of showing me like I can do looks with this palette that are more me right now, even with those shades. So I'm gonna zoom you in so you can kind of like take this in. It's like not a perfect, it's just like smudgy. Basically I did a lot of the stuff that I usually do. Like normally like that smudgy base, I would just use an eyeliner. And then for like the sparkly black shade, I would use one of my single shades, maybe like mink. And then the silver sparkle that I put on, the champagne sparkle, one of my Fido Surges eyeshadows. So there's like a lot of the principles that I'm doing regularly that I just did. It's just, I need to think of my eyeshadow palettes more as tools in general. And then also there's something about this palette that like, I know this about myself. Something that is like could be just viewed as like a palette full of single shadows. It doesn't really resonate in my brain because they're in they're all in here. Like, you know what I mean? And so like my brain functions, I'm like, I have to use that palette as a palette. Which I just did very successfully. And it's really gorgeous. I actually really quite like this eye look. I think it's very, I think I even have more sparkle than I would have wanted from that beige shade. I should have gone in a little bit lighter handed and not with my finger, but I still think I really like it. For eyeliner today, I gotta be honest with you, I mostly just use my Victoria Beckham ones. I have a shade called Tiger Queen from Kofi that I used less. It's a beautiful shade, and I used to wear a lot of oranges, and it was a beautiful eyeliner for that. I just wear that kind of color story less, and so that just gets a lot less play. But I have 4 of the Victoria Beckham eyeliners. This is the one I used the least this year. It's the shade Ash. And you might be like, what? Because it actually is one of my shorter Victoria Beckham eyeliners. I just used it so much last year. It's not black. It's actually like a dark ash gray, and it's really gorgeous. Yeah, I used it so much last year, and I bought the black this year. I would say that the shade, I think I use Cocoa the most, because Cocoa I feel like goes with more things than the black, or I don't know, I guess I just really like the brown look in my waterline more so these days. Love Ash. It's still really good. I mean, I don't have an old mascara, so I'm just going to use the mascara that I have been using recently. This is the City Beauty Beyond mascara. I feel like every time I apply this mascara, I have different feelings on it. Today, I really like it. In my look earlier today, I really liked it. I've liked it the last couple of times I've used it, so I think I just like this mascara. I think there was like a week or two. You know how like sometimes it takes a couple weeks after opening for the mascara to really do what it wants and show you who it is. And I think this has shown me who it is, and I really like it, actually. It does smudge a little bit on me, but it's not really out of control. But it's not the worst thing either. But I do like the drama it brings. For lip liner, I mean, I don't have a ton of lip liners. Most of the time I'm using Endless Cacao from Makeup Forever if I am wearing lip liner. So this is from MAC. It's the shade Chestnut. It's the shade Chestnut. I got this from Skeepers in PR earlier this year. And I really actually like their lip liner formula. So yeah, I don't have any issues with this. It's just Endless Cacao. I wear a lot of I've been wearing a lot of cool tone lips this year, and so that just kind of works with everything. But I do like wearing this one as well. It comes in handy. It's a darker brown than Endless Cacao, and so normally if I'm wearing a more dark vampy lip, this will be the lip liner I choose. I just don't wear dark vampy lips super often. I like to just make big, juicy, plump lips. It's kind of my whole personality. So when I thought of like lip products that I didn't use that much this year, and I think like, it was a noticeable decline in use, is this. This is the YSL Candy Glaze. This is in the shade Scenic Brown. I talked about these earlier in the month when I did my retrospective on the purchases I made in November of last year and how much I used them. There's a couple of things that have happened in regards to this product that has made my use of it decline a little bit. One, I've gotten a lot more stuff this year, like more PR came my way this year, and there was a lot of lip products included in the PR that I received this year. So there was just a decline of me using my own lip products. Like I got so many lip products. Like the amount of lip product I got this year was actually like bananas, like so much lip product that I got this year. And then thing two, there was a brief time where I thought I was allergic to this product, and what happened there is that I was applying so much of it that I was swallowing it, and it was disturbing my throat because it's like this thick glossy thing. And that's my bad. But I still think I associate the feeling of that in my throat. It's like just a negative association with it. And then also this was a gift from a person I'm no longer friends with, which I think adds an emotional baggage to this that makes me use it less. And I think that's just kind of the need. Like those are the 3 reasons. I still really enjoy this product. I've finished one, not in this shade. I always do that finger thing now when I wear this product. I put a finger in my mouth and pull it out just so I don't get any product in my throat. But I still think it's a beautiful gloss. It's a beautiful brown gloss. I love brown lip gloss. I just don't wear this one very often. I would say it's maybe a little warmer than I recall. Like it's a little warm for my taste these days. It's also a little bit dark. I don't know that it really goes with the rest of my look. Yeah, I feel like it needs I need a more cool toned lip for this, but that's fine. It's fine. I'm not going to change it. And then another product that I didn't use as much this year is Fix Plus, which is weird because for the whole, how long have I been doing makeup? 8 years I've been doing makeup. Fix Plus has been a standard in my makeup collection. I used to use it. It's like I had to finish every look with it. I think that this year I have been wearing more glowy product, and even after I powder things, that finish is still looks very seamless for the most part. So I just have been wearing it less. I think I actually bought this particular Fix Plus in the summer of last year. It was in a duo, so I used up a whole one in between. But yeah, it's weird that I've only gone through one other one of these this year. It's kind of just, I don't feel like I'm compelled to use it at the end of every look anymore like I used to. Yeah, I don't know. It's just something, but I still love it. I still would always want one on hand. I'm just using setting spray less. Unless I'm using the Urban Decay all-nighter for going out purposes or heat purposes. But this, I don't know. But what's funny is a couple of weeks ago, I started using it at the end of my looks again. And I think because my skin's a little more dry because of the weather change in the Northeast, my looks were looking a little bit crusty there for a second. And I was like, what's wrong? And then I was like, oh yeah. So this might just be something I use in the winter from henceforth. I like a setting spray. I like the whole process of applying setting spray. So it's not something that I don't feel compelled to not do it, but I probably will buy it less because I'm using less. I also think Fix Plus it changed its packaging months and months ago. And I think the fact that I don't have it in the new packaging is a real testament to how little of it I have been going through. I actually really am so obsessed with this eye look. It's so simple, but it's so just... Ugh. In reflection, I think I have a really pretty look. It's gorgeous. A positive thing to take away from this is that I certainly have not been keeping crap in my makeup collection. And I do think that all of this performed just as well as I've ever remembered it performing. It's all very good makeup. It has also left me with a lot to think about whenever it comes to decluttering. Some of it might go, some of it might stay. But I think my main takeaway is that I can use the Isamaya palette in ways and make it look the way I want it to and feel the way I want it to without having to do the big drama looks that I used to do with it, because I was able to do this gorgeous, this is so good. I keep looking at it in the mirror. I love it. I love this eye look. And my skin looks good too. Yeah, no complaints here. So I have some really good makeup in my collection. It's I don't get to all of it. Is that fair to me? Is that fair to the makeup? That's just also fair to the makeup. It doesn't have feelings. It's just makeup. But you know what I mean? Just should I make space? I don't want to make space just because I will have new products to test. And well, who knows? But maybe I'll have new products to test in the new year. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to stick around for the rest of this weekend, I would love to have you subscribe. This is a lot of what I do on my channel. My channel is focused on helping myself and helping you be more discerning about the purchases that we are making in the beauty industry. I want to show you how to do the work and what work I do in order to not buy things frivolously, but I do buy things for review sometimes. I also get PR. That means my relationship with makeup is probably going to look a lot different than yours, and I try to be as open about that too as I navigate the beauty space. So please subscribe. I'm on Patreon and I have channel memberships. You can find those linked down below. If you do decide to join one of those, I would do it on a computer so you don't have any surcharges through the App Store. I do an additional video over there every single month, and every patron on every level gets the same reward. But if you don't want to do that, or you don't have the money to do that, that's totally fine. I'm so happy that you are here watching, commenting, and sharing my content. That's the best way to support me or any other content creator on this platform. But if you are a patron or member, I really appreciate you. You are the best. In my pinned comment down below, I have a link to help families in Gaza. If you have the means to help them, please do. And that's going to wrap up the video. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to follow your hope and you'll find me. And I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth. Tits out.